Carry podcast. This is season 7, episode 3. And welcome to the Concealed Carry podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network of shows, brought to you today by Mountain Man Medical. Today is Wednesday, July 20th, 2022, as the recording of this episode. And I'm your host, Riley Bowman, and I'm joined today by my co-host and producer, Matthew Maruster. And we also have a couple of guests on our episode, very special episode here today. We'll bring them on and introduce them officially here in a moment. But first, today's episode sponsored, brought to you by Gunfighter Gun Oil. Gunfighter Gun Oil, we've been partnered with for a time now, and I've been using their stuff for a couple of years now. And all I can say is, if something works and it does, and it's not broke, why change it, right? Gunfighter Gun Oil has worked phenomenally for all of my guns. I use it in my ARs, I use it in my bolt actions, my shotguns, and especially my pistols, which everybody knows that I shoot a lot. I shoot those pistols a lot. I was just thinking today, I think I've got like 35,000 rounds on one of them. And Gunfighter Gun Oil has been responsible for at least half of those rounds and not a single malfunction, which is crazy to think. Gunfighteroil.com is our website. Go check them out today. Hope that you will give them a try and have as much success with it as I have. Also, today's episode is sponsored by the 2022 Guardian Conference, which is going to be in September, the 16th to the 18th in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Many of you have heard about it already on the podcast. You're going to hear about some more because we're going to keep filling those seats until the event, or until it's full. I actually need to check on numbers. I don't know how far we are from being full, but I know seats continue selling. So, guys, check out tickets today, guardianconference.com. We're going to have a great time. If you talk to anybody that was there last year, you know it was a top-tier event. In fact, one of our instructors, Chuck Haggard, said it's one of the best conferences he's ever attended. So, which I was really humbled when I heard his feedback on that. So, Chuck will be there again teaching this year, plus a bunch of other great instructors. Go to guardianconference.com, and we hope to see you there. And also, one of our sponsors, the Guardian Conference, so we're mentioning them here briefly today, which Chuck also happens, I think, to be a fan of. That's Palm Pepper Spray. Palm is one of this year's sponsors, and we're super excited to have them on board. We anticipate seeing some Palm products out and about at the conference. And if you want to learn more about Palm Pepper Spray, go to palmpepperspray.com. It's POM pepperspray.com. Okay, sponsor messages. Hey, there we go. We got it done. And here we are with our two special guests. Matthew, you haven't said a word yet, so why don't you say hello real quick, Matthew?
Hello.
Hey.
I don't have much to say. I just want to get to the meat of it and let Sarah Joy and Genevieve introduce themselves and get cranking on this topic. This is going to be a cool episode.
You're just our pretty face here today.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
I mean, they're pretty too, but they're over here. But I think you're just looking stellar with the white and the beard and everything.
I don't know what to say about that, but
so you just let it slip. Our guests, Sarah Joy Albrecht and Genevieve Jones. Hello, Sarah and Genevieve. Welcome.
Thank you. This is fun to be here.
Thanks for having us.
We're glad to have you. It's not very often we do 4 people on the show, actually. We typically do 3, but this is a special occasion, and we've made an exception for you two. So we've got Genevieve and Sarah from Hold My Guns. HoldMyGuns.org is your website. Is that right?
That's correct.
So we got that out of the way, but we'll mention it again throughout the episode. So let's start with Sarah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And both of you are listed as co-founders of Hold My Guns. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so, Sarah, we'll start with you, and then Genevieve, we'll go to you as well. Let's hear a little bit about you guys' backgrounds, and then after we've done that with each of you, let's talk about Hold My Guns and where the heck did that come from?
Okay, so I'm Sarah Joy Albrecht, and I am co-founder of Hold My Guns. And what we do with Hold My Guns is we partner with gun shops across the United States, and we provide voluntary firearm storage. And it's during times of crisis, like a mental health crisis or personal need. And so, a little bit about myself. I'm a mom of 5. I'm a range safety officer, and I help instruct at a youth rifle league. And it was because of that. And I also have 11 years background as a doula and childbirth educator. And it's because of that I founded Hold My Guns. We lost a friend to suicide, and my kids came to me and said, Mom, what can we do? How can we help people in the firearms community? So it's just really cool to just see how, my background and even how my kids were influential in founding this nonprofit. And I'm grateful for Genevieve's friendship. We've been friends for a long time, and it's fun to be making a difference together with one of my dearest friends in the world. So
Awesome. Genevieve, how about you?
Sure. Oh, thanks, Sarah, by the way. That was so nice. So my name's Genevieve Jones. I'm the other co-founder of Hold My Guns. A little bit about me. I grew up in the firearms world. I started shooting when I was probably 8 or 9 years old and competing when I was 14. I've been an instructor for 10 years and worked in a lot of different gun shops, and I have, an online presence where I just shoot a bunch of cool things and post it on Instagram, and that's a lot of fun. And when Sarah came up with the idea for Hold My Gun, she met up with me and said, how do we make this happen? And I knew a friend of mine who's an attorney at Prince Law Firm. His name's Joshua Prince. A lot of people are familiar with him. And I connected them, and Hold My Guns was born from there.
That is awesome. Here I'm trying to manage my own mute button, and I missed it. I'm the podcast host. How do we make these mistakes? Just kidding. Holdmyguns.org again. Okay, so Joshua Prince, I saw, like you just mentioned, involved, and of course he's involved in a lot of worthwhile things. Here's what I picked up on. I'm sure this is not anything new for you guys, but for our listeners, as Sarah, as you talked a little bit about too, about losing someone to suicide, which probably most of us, if not all of us, have been touched by suicide in some fashion in our lives. I have as well. Certainly have known more than a handful of people have committed suicide with a firearm. Specifically, which is a terrible thing. And we know suicide's an issue. We know there's all kinds of issues in our country with respect to violence and guns being potentially a part of that violence. Suicide being responsible for roughly about a third, if I'm not mistaken, or if I remember correctly, of deaths in America with that are involved with guns. And it's a terrible thing. Now we have, I'm sure, this is not news to anybody out there, but politicians and various gun groups would love to impose upon us certain restrictions in a supposed effort to reduce violence that involves the use of guns and, like basically restrict rights to reduce suicides or murder or homicide or whatever. Specifically, we're here to talk about mental health and suicide today. What I appreciate about your organization, though, is that you are gun folks. You are pro 2A, and your organization's all about providing crisis services while maintaining gun rights and gun ownership, which is super important. And this you're talking about solutions that come from within our own people, not some government imposed solution. So that's awesome. When did you guys get started?
We lost our friend at the end of 2018, and we officially became so in that next year, we started to kind of explore what we wanted to put together, and we're working with Joshua Prince, who's our legal counsel. And so it took about a year to just really develop it, and it was actually at SHOT Show 2020 that we received word through Josh that we had received our official 501c3 designation. And then from there, we're able to start onboarding gun shops. And we did onboard, I think it was 3 at the the end of 2021. And then we've been adding more since. So we're up to 6 storage partners. 5 are functional right now as one of them. St. Bernard Indoor Shooting Center was directly hit by a tornado in Louisiana. So they're temporarily closed. But it is really amazing to see how our efforts from within the firearms community are saving lives. People store firearms for mental health reasons. It might not even be the gun owner. And in the case of my friend who passed, she was 18 and used a firearm that was, one of her parents, I believe. So it might not be the gun owner in crisis. It might be the postpartum spouse of a gun owner, for example. We also store firearms for personal situations. For example, we had a veteran that was he was evicted from his apartment and he could not take his firearms to a shelter. So there's an opportunity to store firearms off-site and voluntarily that, has nothing to do with mental health. However, firearm ownership is very personal to someone. And so especially to a veteran, which I have a lot of veterans in my family, and helping veterans is very, very dear to my heart. But, when you take away someone's possessions that are dear to them, it can create a mental health situation. So finding a solution like Hold My Guns that supports people so that it's not only, I always say, we're not just saving lives, but we're also protecting property and preserving rights in that process.
That's awesome. And Matthew, I'm sure that speaks to you. You're a veteran. I didn't know that, but I think that is phenomenal that you would offer a service like that as well for someone that is not only in a mental health crisis, but in just a life crisis.
And we do not ask why. And that's really important, because you don't want to stigmatize people or assume that they have a mental health crisis going on. Our priority is can this person lawfully possess a firearm, and are they prohibited or not? And that's really what our criteria would be. It's not, well, if it's this circumstance or this circumstance. We follow just the bare bones to the law. And that's what is very important. We can also store like a barrel or a firing pin, non-serialized critical parts, for people who might be concerned about doing a transfer, that sort of a thing. But our goal is to empower people so that they can manage their private matters before they become public ones. We do not want, we are opposed to a legislative approach to this, and we want to give people resources to prevent them from having that kind of outside intervention that can result in loss of rights and ex parte hearings and all of that. So it's very important. And from the beginning, which is why we hired Joshua Prince, who's renowned for fighting for rights and preserving rights. That's why we took that route and took our time to make sure that we're not creating a foothold for people to lose their rights.
Yeah. One thing that I really appreciated, and you mentioned, is it's a voluntary thing. It's something that you don't ask why. And coming from a military law enforcement background, mental health is stigmatized, right? Like, yes. And that's a barrier that I don't think that a lot of people discuss about. I don't want to go to a doctor and say, hey, I have a mental health problem, or I don't know what to do, right? And so I know internally, like, I've taken guns, held guns for friends of mine that were going through issues, but in a state where there are, you can't do that. You have to transfer it legally, right? I can't just have somebody bring a gun over to me because the law doesn't allow that. That gives people the ability to do this legally and more of a framework. And I think it's so big because if you don't give people options, they're stuck trying to deal with it on their own and internalizing everything. And that, I think, makes the problem even worse.
That's an excellent point. And, even in a state where it is, in Pennsylvania, you can have a friend hang on to a firearm for you. If it is a pistol, then they have to, then there has to be the friend has to have a concealed carry permit in order to do a safekeeping type transfer. But, even in states where it is extremely easy and lawful to do that, many people take for granted that not everyone has friends or family who are able to help. And so that's why it's so important to have options like this. It would be wonderful if everyone had friends or family, and they have friends who have a firearm safe and their 2-year-old's not going to get into your gun, but we really have to remember that not everyone has that blessing of friends or family. And so, some of the people are like, well, why would I do that? I have someone that can help me out with this. Well, good for you. Bless your heart. Not everybody does. So that's why it was important to come up with this.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned everything you just did, Sarah, as well as Matthew, because that's one of the things I appreciate about what you guys are doing. Because here in Colorado, by universal background check law, I can't just take a friend's guns. And so having a solution, and apparently we don't have any locations in Colorado yet. We may need to get to work on that.
Help us with that. Yes.
But having an option to be like that, there's some local dealer here, particularly in the Denver metro area where I'm located, where we could do that and make it fairly simple and pain free. Like that would be huge. I actually came across this not that long ago where a friend let me know that someone was asking them to for them to hold on to their guns for them, and I was like, hey bro, did you know it's actually technically not legal in Colorado? He's like, what? Really? Like, people just don't even know. They're just like ignorant to the law, or they maybe ignore it because in their mind they're just thinking crisis, I need to help, and they're doing what they know they should do, but the law was not written with some of those unforeseen consequences in mind, which is an unfortunate thing. So that is awesome. So tell us, how does this work exactly, though? So, like, for instance, I go to your website, right? And let's say that for whatever reason, and I appreciate also, like you said too, Sarah, that no questions asked. It's just I contact. I guess that's the question. How does this work? I go, okay, find storage location, and oh, here, hey, I didn't know these guys are in Laramie. That's not too far away. So actually, there is a solution for some folks. They want to cross the border into Wyoming. There, Gold Spur Outfitters LLC. Oh, they've got their contact info.
Yes.
Yeah, they're really good people.
So I just like call them and say, hey, you're a Hold My Guns dealer or storage partner, and I need to bring some guns to you. And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. Is that how that works?
That's how that works.
Cool.
And you just set up an appointment with our storage partners, and they might ask, all right, well, how many firearms do you have? Let's clear some room in the safe type thing. But it's very straightforward. It is designed to be as simple as a typical transfer. In fact, we the closest thing that you could, I guess, compare it to would be a consignment return process. So I've talked a lot, and Genevieve has worked in many gun shops, and I want to give her the opportunity. So do you take it from here? You can describe our process.
Sure. So I'll just go through it as if I wanted to store my firearms with someone. So I would, like Sarah said, go to the website, find my state. And when we have more storage partners, we plan to do an interactive map, but creating websites and all of that back end stuff is very challenging. So I would go on there, find my state, call up a storage partner in my area, and I would say, I need you to hold my guns. And they would either set up an appointment time to come in or just tell you to come down. If anyone's familiar with gun shops, there's something called an acquisition and disposition logbook. So anytime a firearm comes in, like for consignment or for transfer, it gets written in the A&D book so that it temporarily transfers ownership to the gun shop. So me bringing my firearms in, they would temporarily be transferred to the gun shop. When I want to come back in to pick up my firearms, I just come in and they get transferred back to me with a 4473 background check and following all state and local laws. So, for example, if I lived in California, I would have to wait 30 days or whatever for the background check to go through. But that's all talked about up front. So it's just like a regular gun sale. It's the same as a consignment, except instead of selling the gun, they're transferring it back to you when you come back to the shop.
Yeah. And point of clarification, you're still the owner, but in a consignment process, you're temporarily transferring possession, which is important because it's you do not have to fill out the 3310.4 form, which is a multiple sale, because it is transferring back to the owner of the firearm. So it's, as Genevieve said, it is very similar to a consignment return process.
And we have had people who are concerned about having to do a background check after. It's really to protect our storage partners. I could use this for nefarious reasons if I wanted to store my firearms, commit a crime, and then come back and pick them up. So we just want to make sure that the person is still lawfully able to own. However, you can, as Sarah mentioned in the beginning of this episode, store a non-serialized critical part. So if you wanted to take the barrel out of your gun and store that instead, then you wouldn't need to do a 4473 form to pick that up.
Or a privately manufactured firearm. That's a way to help in a situation like that, where it's like, just hang on to my firing pin for me, and we'll make sure that I'm not using this to harm myself. But there are lawful ways to make this work for different situations.
Yeah. And it's a conversation that came up with my friend that unknowingly was about to store some firearms without go through the proper channels here in Colorado. I was like, well, they have ARs. Okay, cool. Take the bolt carrier groups or take the whole uppers, right? Unserialized parts. Revolvers, we can usually very simply and quickly remove the cylinder from a revolver, a little bit quicker than removing the firing pin.
Yep.
Semi-autos, we can pull the back plate, pull the striker assembly out, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that was like, oh yeah, it's a good idea.
Right.
I kind of wonder, I don't know. I'm just looking at this. Okay, so I have a couple questions for you. One, looking at your organization and looking at your storage partner locations, and I'm like, this sounds like a worthwhile thing. It's one of the reasons why we have you on here, to just talk about it and hopefully help you grow it. But I wonder, like what if we could offer a service where it's like, mail us your firing pins or whatever, right? Relatively small or light, relatively, small pieces of guns, and just, ship it off in a box to a Hold My Guns location, and allow that to, just give people that, like someone that's in southern Arizona, like let's say Tucson, Arizona, there's nowhere, nearby they can take their guns to as far as current storage locations. I don't know, just me thinking. So
I'm glad it's inspiring you, Riley. That's pretty cool. And, people who do live in states where there might be issues with legal transfers, to your point, many times you can steal or store something like I say steal, I'm like, ooh, no, sorry. No, but there are many situations where you could store, a part to a friend's firearm.
Yeah.
And what we don't want to do is just say, Hold My Guns is the only option that you have, and if you don't have a partner near you, you're screwed. No, we want for people to realize, hey, I do have options. Maybe there's not a partner near me yet, but what else can I do to make sure that we're safe here at home? And that's a great way to do it. So
I'm going to throw this question at Genevieve. So how does one go about, like, if they wanted to become one of your storage partners, how does that go? How does that work? And what are you looking for from storage partners?
So we actually have a very short questionnaire on our website. If somebody is interested in becoming a storage partner, we would ask that they go and fill that out. We really just need to make sure that they are a current FFL, they have general liability insurance, and they have some type of an attorney that could look over their customer-facing agreement to make sure that it is compatible with local and state and local laws. Because for Sarah and I to know, the state laws of everyone, it would be an impossible task. So we just need to make sure that it's compliant. Other than that, we really want to, in the future, expand with our partners to offer some type of training. Sarah's certified in QPR training, which is question, persuade, and refer. And suicide prevention training. So, storage partners who have classrooms that we can come and offer classes, that would be wonderful. We want people who would like to do some kind of a community effort, maybe like a food drive or something like that. It's really, we want just to partner with good people who have an actual storefront, general liability insurance and all that. But beyond that, we want to partner with people who really care, not just someone who says, okay, yeah, we'll take your stuff, see you later. They really want to make a difference. And there's been so many incredible people who have reached out that really do want to make a difference. It's been pretty amazing. Sorry, I realize I should keep, talking about the process. After you fill out the questionnaire on our website, we would send over an NDA. Once that's signed and filled out, then we could send over the agreement between Hold My Guns and the storage partner and the customer-facing agreement as well.
Gotcha. Do you ever run into a situation where you're maybe looking at a prospective storage partner location, and maybe they have a concern, like, I don't know, imagine if somebody that has a collection of 200 or 300 or 500 guns, and they're like, I'm having a crisis. Hey, no questions asked, right? Like, I got these 500 guns. Here you go. any thoughts on how situations like that might be managed?
Yes, we do have some of our storage partners have a larger storage capacity. So far, we haven't run into that, but some of them have more like warehouse storage available that's affiliated with their FFL. So that's a thing. In the chat, I see something about tax stamps, and again, it just depends on the FFL if there are a dealer that's authorized to handle those items. But I believe we do have some that are. So again, the first thing to do is to call the FFL storage partner and say, here's what I'd like to bring in. Here's the quantity. Are you guys able to handle this? Or, can you refer me somewhere else that might be able to help? And, that's why it's so important to be working with storage partners who genuinely care, because they're problem solvers and their goal is to help people in our firearms community.
Right. And the more options, the more, people that you're working with, FFLs that are working with, you might not have, your first guy might not have enough storage to hire, to hold 400 guns. But that's why this kind of stuff is important, to get this information out so more FFLs can come on board and be part of this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Without, I don't want to like shift, and I'm sure we'll come back to like the process and everything, but you guys do more than just set up, partnerships with FFLs, right? Like you guys are certifying firearm trainers and going out and really trying to help people in the community be more aware of the signs and how to recognize people that might be, heading towards a crisis or on the verge of that, and how to kind of broach those subjects and how is that, can you kind of go through that with maybe firearm instructors, what you guys are looking for, how you do that, and why it's kind of like a two-prong attack, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I love teaching QPR suicide prevention classes. I think it's something that's much needed. As Genevieve mentioned, it stands for question, persuade, and refer. And one of the reasons why we started teaching QPR is because Genevieve had a student sign up to take one of her firearms classes, and she recognized that something was off on this person's baseline and stopped the training. We had another board member have a similar experience. And so in our board meeting, we're like, wow, like, what do you do? We noted that whenever, as an RSO, if I'm going to be at an event, I'm going to be asking for the standard operating procedures. And if you look in a SOP, there's nothing in there about, what number do I call? Who do I call if someone on my range is in crises, right? And we realized that there's not really a lot of training around mental health and gun ranges. So we decided to start looking into what training options are out there. And I chose to get trained in QPR with the sponsorship of Hold My Guns, because it does not set up the person who's helping as a mental health professional. It trains you to look for warning signs, to learn how to talk to people in a compassionate and persuasive way, and to empower them to connect to resources that are appropriate. And I felt that was very important because, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can recognize if there's a change to baseline on the firing line. And if I see someone out there who's, they look like they're having a moment, I automatically, I'm already going over and saying, hey, do you need help with anything? What's going on today? And to be able to have that training to take it a step further to say, hey, I'm noticing these things. How are you doing? How are you really doing? I'm just wondering, are you thinking of harming yourself? And then saying, let's step away from the firing line. Let's make this safe, and let's have a conversation. And so we've been offering this training. The first time we offered QPR training was at Lower Providence Rod and Gun Club, and there were 50 people that attended that. The next time, and that was before I was certified, and then I taught at a Girl and a Gun National Conference. We did 6 groups of ladies, 10 ladies in each group. So that was 60 people certified at a Girl and a Gun conference. And then just, I think it was a week and a half ago, did a training with Active Self-Protections instructor cohort and certified 30 people there. So the number of instructors are growing. Cool thing was I happened to sit next to Beth Alcazar from USCCA on the flight home from A Girl and a Gun. And I said, hey, like it was just providentially, we were sitting next to each other. I was like, I have all my materials with me. How would you like to get certified in suicide prevention? Counts for 2 continuing education credits while we're on this plane. And she said yes. And she wrote an article about it. So it is beautiful to see that the firearms community is recognizing that there's a need to do this. And our hope is that, you know, if God forbid there were a situation like a student contacts an instructor, like what happened with Genevieve, you know, that instead of thinking, how can I have access to firearms in a range, they might say, wait a second, this instructor is certified in suicide prevention. Maybe I can ask some questions and get some help through them. That's our hope. And we also would like to see in those standard operating procedures that ranges think, you know, what resources are available and what training can we provide to our RSOs and instructors so that they know how to de-escalate and refer someone to help if we ever see that at our range.
That's super important because suicides at ranges are
It happens.
It's a thing. It's a thing, and it's sad to see, and it's sad for everybody involved, but it's sad for the range. It's just they're just a tool, you know. They're just a means. Unfortunately, at that point, a lot of times, and they want nothing to do with that. Of course, I went through QPR training. We actually hosted 2 sessions of QPR training that was hosted by our church. A little while back, and I thought it was really excellent training. And I got excited when I heard that you're a QPR certified trainer. So it's really cool.
Thank you. And we tailor that to meet the needs of the firearms community. You know, we do talk about there are, as you're probably aware with the QPR training, they give statistics for suicide. And so we also include a few extra slides in there to talk about the bigger context, you know, that firearms have there's many defensive gun uses each year. Even recently, right? We heard about the
Georgetown study.
Yeah. So there's a Georgetown study. But, you know, recently we even heard about the situation where the gentleman in the Indiana Mall stopped a threat. So, you know, that's why it's so important from our perspective that we need to preserve rights, because the bigger picture is that firearms are used to prevent people from becoming victims all the time. And it just ties in with that beautiful idea of liberty. How can we take it a step further to be responsible and to look out for people and to be equipped, not for waiting when you're in crises to be thinking about these things, but just like with firearms training, to be prepared ahead of time and to know what to do. I really appreciate Genevieve's work in mental health advocacy. In fact, Silencer Co. even did a documentary on her and how the firearms community and its protective factors made a difference in her life. So I'm grateful for that. Genevieve, do you have anything to add?
No, you're doing a great job, Sarah. You always do. Thank you for the high praise. Yeah, I believe that in the firearms industry, if we all start talking more about how we're feeling, then people will be less afraid to talk to someone about how they're feeling. I get a question like at least every single day, how do I get help if I own firearms? I mean, I've been in therapy for like 12 years. So I usually just tell people, you know, I go to therapy, I take medication, I'll shout it on the internet, and it's fine, because you have to be able to take care of yourself at a certain point. And I think that people don't understand that a lot of mental health professionals don't want to put you in a hospital. They don't want to take your rights away. And there's a way to do it and be safe at the same time and protect yourself. But getting help is important.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I appreciate you guys' heart so much on this aspect, because I think suicide, you know, is with firearms, kind of like that whole issue gets pushed to the side by people inside the 2A community and outside, right? Because like the people that want gun control, they count suicide deaths in with gun, I'm putting quotes on if you're not watching, if you're just listening, like gun violence, right? It is violence, right? And those lives do matter, but it's different than somebody, you know, shooting people in a mall, right?
Mhm.
So like a lot of people inside the community, they say, well, we'll separate those out, but they never come back and address those, right? They take them out so they can address it and say, well, they're not crime, they're not criminals, against an innocent person, so let's not count those. And then on the other side, so nobody's really like digging into that specific, making more gun-free zones isn't going to keep people from being depressed or having a manic break and killing themselves, right? So the legislation act part of it doesn't help. And so what you guys are doing, and similarly like Walk the Talk and some of these other organizations that are really starting to more focus on this, is really important, because we have within the 2A community, a lot of, military and law enforcement, and that stigma keeps people from talking about it, from seeking help, from just being real and opening up to their friends and saying, dude, I need some help, man. Can you hold my guns? Like, even that is hard for a lot of people, and just talking about it and knowing that there's other people and there's other options, and people care. I think it's going to make a difference. I truly believe that.
Thank you. And I love that you brought up the term gun violence, and that it makes the hair in the back of my neck stand up. Like, I hate that term. And I'll tell you why. And like you said, it's all lumped together. And 60% of all firearms related deaths are suicide. So it's really great. They can pump up the numbers when they do that. However, I want for people, whenever we think about statistics, we always need to bring it back to people. And I always think about my dad, who he's served in the Marine Corps. He actually enlisted to go to Vietnam. So it tells you a lot about his personality. And I say, think about my dad. If my dad were ever in crises and you're pushing, oh, thank you for your service, here's a suicide prevention brochure because you're a veteran, and that, and we've had conversations like that people have done that kind of a thing. And when you think about people, when you use the term gun violence, what you're doing is you are equating that person for having suicidal ideation with their firearm with somebody plotting an armed bank robbery. It's the same thing. And you don't want to do that. And I say, are you telling someone like my dad, who served his country and who cares about people, would give you the shirt off of his back, that he's in the same category as some person that's premeditating an armed bank robbery? And it makes me angry. And I want for people to understand, like, words mean things. And just using this blanket term, gun violence, it creates stigma, and it makes gun owners, our whole point is to reach gun owners, right? We want to reduce those deaths. It actually makes them not want to get help. So I just really want to encourage people to think about the way that you talk about suicide and the way that you talk about mental health and getting help, and don't buy into the political narrative just to call it all gun violence. That's crap.
Amen. Amen. What are some ways, like just random folks here listening to the podcast, what are ways people can get involved to help you in your mission?
We thrive on financial support and donations from the community. A moment ago, we were talking about how there are legislative efforts out there to try to reduce the number of gun-related deaths. And that is the machine that we're up against. And we want to make sure that our message is one that is coming from within the firearms community, that's not being persuaded by, which we've turned down funding from outside organizations for that reason. But the fact that it comes from within the firearms community means that there's solidarity amongst all the stakeholders involved. So whether you are, you have a firearms related business, or even a hardware store, or whatever it might be, there, being a sponsor of Hold My Guns really helps to get the mission out there. We are always interested in bringing on board new storage partners. Our goal is to have a storage partner in all 50 states so that people don't have to cross state lines and deal with, different firearms related laws. So that's a way that you can get involved. If you go to our social media, there's a link tree in our bio, and you can print. We have an awesome brochure that we have that people can download and take to their local gun shop. and share and just say, hey, this is something that is coming from within the firearms community. Would you be interested in helping? We are always looking for people to share content online and to volunteer to help get the word out. There's also on that form that Genevieve mentioned, it's in our link tree. You can also sign up to be a volunteer, and then signing up for the newsletter as well to keep you aware of the upcoming events and trainings that we're offering, and participating in them and helping to get the word out is tremendous help.
So obviously I appreciate you guys not compromising what the organization's intent is by taking outside funding and changing that and letting them kind of dictate what you guys are going to do. And that's totally commendable. But it does place limitations on you guys. Right. And so, and within, the gun owner community, there can be not everybody's of the same mind. And so what are some of the main objections you've had from within the community as far as like, hey, I think it's a great idea, but I'm not willing to do this because of this, or these are my concerns? And how would you address those? So if somebody's listening and they're like, well, I don't know about this, or, the privacy aspect, what would you say to kind of, answer some of those common questions you get or objections?
Well, first of all, at SHOT Show this year, really awesome. Active Self-Protection was interviewing me, and on camera, they surprised me with the fact that they were going to do matching donations, and that they were partnering with HK and Mantis and Palm Pepper Spray, which, by the way, I have right here, also one of your show sponsors. And they helped to do matching donations up to $20,000, and we raised $7,000. So it came to $27,000 just from that SHOT Show campaign. So the first thing that people who might be interested in sponsoring might want to know is that some leading brands in our industry actually care about this, and they are on that pathway to providing support to Hold My Guns, and there's no better time to get involved. It's the cool thing. The cool kids are doing it. So I would say that. And then I am really grateful, as Genevieve said earlier, that people are asking hard questions. We're always available to answer them. Privacy is a concern, and because of that, we worked with Joshua Prince, and he wrote in the contract that if there is ever a court order, which the acquisition and disposition logbook is not something that someone can just go and look at off the street. The gun shop employees are authorized, the people who are doing those, recording it in that logbook to say, this is our inventory, what we have, they're authorized to see it. And ATF IOI is authorized to see if they're doing a spot check. But otherwise, you need a warrant to look at that book. And that is in our storage contract. And we take it a step further, Matt and Riley, because we care about that. And we have it in our contract that if there is a court order, that the FFL partner is required to request that their personal, like their name, is sealed so that that information is not shared. And that's very important because and it is up to the judge, but they'd have to make a pretty, strong argument why it couldn't be sealed. Because we know that people like veterans and law enforcement and people who have, might be prominent in a community, they don't want to have, or just someone like me, a mom of 5, would not want my name to be in a newspaper because someone, was looking at a logbook. And so we are very, very almost obnoxious about protecting privacy. And we invite people, to continue to ask questions like that. We want for them to support us, but I don't like it when people just say, oh, wow, that's a really great idea. Let's just go for it. Because honestly, that's how a lot of the gun grabbing groups, that's how they roll. They're like, well, you really care about saving lives, right? So even though you're a gun owner, just join us. No, we know what your ulterior motive is. So we really value transparency and privacy, and we're here to answer questions.
I can just keep coming back. I'm like, this seems like a worthwhile thing. I think we should support it. And I'm thinking, by golly, all the little local ranges next to me here and gun shops, I'm going to go talk to these people. So maybe I need to find some brochures or get some from you or something, because that might be helpful. But And I'm going to encourage our listeners too, like, go to holdmyguns.org, look at their info, see what they're all about. I mean, you're hearing it firsthand here too. And then, like, go talk to some folks about this. I mean, money's good too. Well, let's donate some money too. But, like, let's get more of these locations because we need more of them. There's a lot of country out there that's U.S. is a big country.
Yes.
So that's my takeaway from all this is I'm like, all right, I'm going down to this range and that gun shop and that gun shop, places I do business with or frequent regularly, and we're gonna have some conversations about this.
That sounds good. And they need to be an FFL. So some gun ranges are not necessarily federal firearms licensees. So that's a requirement. They need to have general liability insurance and they need to be a public facing entity. We do require a legal review. And if they have an attorney working with them already, that's helpful. But that's another way that people could get involved. If they have an attorney who's in the firearms community, they're pro rights, to be able to review that contract and make sure that it is compliant with the state and local laws is important. Recently, and you probably heard, in Washington, they now have a mag capacity ban. So you're not allowed to have a magazine of over 10 rounds. And they're like, well, that doesn't affect existing gun owners. Well, actually, it creates an obstacle for storage because our FFL partner can no longer transfer a 10-round magazine. And so again, when you take a legislative approach, you're demonizing gun owners, and it does affect things like suicide prevention. So one side of their mouth, they're saying, oh yeah, just store your firearms off site. And on the other side, they're like, we're going to make it really hard for you. We're going to turn you into criminals. So that's why it's important to have that legal review, and donations go to things like that. They go to things like, if we have a storage partner that needs a larger safe, that we can start, collecting funds to help them so that they can better support their community. So that's another way people can get involved, connecting us with attorneys or offering to sponsor a gun shop that would be interested in joining. Even though there's no fee to join Hold My Guns, there are some logistical things that can get expensive. So
of course. Speaking of Washington, for our Washington State peeps, Randall Family Firearms LLC. It looks like in the Seattle-Tacoma region. Just look at the map.
Yes, they are awesome.
Yeah. For you Washington folks, if you're going to have them hold your guns, you might want to make sure you hold on to your mags. Because you're exactly right, Sarah, about that terrible law up there.
So I had a procedural question. Let's say I want to have somebody, I want to use one of your FFL partners, and I'm facing a financial crisis. And is there a fee for this? And is it based, does the FFL set that fee? Is it a universal fee across, when you partner with them, that you stipulate the fee, or how does that work?
Go ahead.
The FFL partner would set the fee. So how some of our partners are doing it now, in the contract, they'll say, we're going to charge you a small fee, maybe $10 or $20 a month, to store this firearm. And if we don't hear from you within X amount of days, like 60 or 90 days, then we have the right to sell this firearm for the agreed upon price. And all of this is in the customer facing agreement. So the person who's storing firearms would sign off of this before they even go through with the process. We do have a lot of people who say, I don't want $20 to come between someone's life or not, so I don't want to have to charge them. But the problem with that is then you're asking people why they're storing, and that is essentially like creating a registry, because it's like, I won't charge you money if you're in a mental health crisis, but in any other time, if you're going on vacation or your grandparents are staying with you or whatever, I'm going to charge you $20 a month. So we really do encourage people to just set like a small affordable fee just for everyone, so you don't have to ask that question.
Mm-hmm. And some of our gun shop partners are talking about doing like a roundup program for doing scholarships. And we also have folks with different veterans organizations that are looking at doing something like that as well, to make a donation to help offset some of those costs. And that way, if someone is in a time of financial need, and I personally know what that's like. I grew up on welfare and eating out of garbage cans. So I get it. And, but we don't want to have people making that choice between like being safe and their next meal. And so, having a scholarship, that person can say, hey, I'm not able to afford it this month. Can I take from the scholarship fund? And that way there's still communication between the gun owner and the gun shop, that they know their intention and they're not just stashing firearms with them and going to ghost them. So it's important to have a business transaction that's happening there. It keeps it professional and it makes sure that there's good communication. But if someone's ever in that situation, some folks have said they will help with it. So if you're hearing this, get in touch with us, and whether you want to sponsor people or that is an obstacle, we want to help solve that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just keep going over things on your site here, and now I'm also I'm like a squirrel or a dog that finds a squirrel. I'm like, oh, squirrel, hey, look, I'm on goldspuroutfitters.com and learn more about some of your storage partners. But okay, so yeah, what else haven't we talked about that we should talk about before we let the two of you go? I think we're getting close to our time here.
Something that we haven't talked about yet that I think is really important is having a personal safety plan. And you can download that. If while you're being a squirrel, Riley, you can take a look at this. If you go to
where is it?
Go to our Instagram or to our Facebook and click on the link tree. And you can download, it's a 2-page personal safety plan. There you go. And Riley is looking on his phone, everybody. And that is something that you can download. You're not filling it out on our website. You can fill it out with a pencil if you'd like. And what we want is for gun owners to think ahead before they're in a time of crises. Who am I going to call to help me think? What resources do I want? Which doctor or pastor or buddy am I going to call when I am in crises? We want for people to think ahead and not be in the midst of a difficult time and then trying to think. Just like when we train with our firearms, we are doing all of our thinking and our training ahead of time to prepare us for being in a difficult situation where we're engaging with a threat. And it's the same thing with threats from within. We want for people to think about, if I'm ever in the situation, we never know what the day is going to hold. Just last week, my 18-year-old got into a motorcycle accident. He's okay. But when we woke up that morning, we had no idea what our afternoon would hold. And so it is arrogance if people think, oh, that'll never happen to me. It's better to have a plan, including a plan for what to do with your firearms, than to find yourself in an unexpected situation where you're injured or you're having other crises in your home and not know what to do. When you do that, if you don't know what to do, you're along for the ride, and you have a stronger chance of having your rights taken away because that's what someone's suggesting to you, and you don't have the wherewithal in the moment to say, no, this is what our plan will be, and this will help preserve rights. Part of that plan might be making sure that you have the right attorney who can help you too. I'm sorry, but I'm going to give my attorney a call before I answer questions. It all ties together with the idea of personal responsibility and exercising your liberty in a way that helps to preserve your rights, but you have to think about it ahead of time. So I would say, everyone has homework today. Go download that personal safety plan, fill it out, put it in your dresser or something. You might not ever need it, but it's better to have it and think about it ahead of time and not need it than to need it and not have it.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I pray to God that the listeners, you wouldn't have to use that either. But on the flip side, maybe that going through that makes them think about how they could be, how they can invest in other people's lives, the people around them that they have influence in their lives, and how can I be somebody that somebody respects enough or trusts enough to put me as that person that they're thinking of me when they're filling out that list. Like, if I'm in crisis,
yes,
I can go to Matt, and because I trust him, and it takes investing in people's lives. So it's kind of like, you don't want to have to use it, but at the same time, maybe you could be that person for somebody else that reaches out and they rely on and gets them.
What a beautiful idea, Matt. Because imagine if you had a friend in crises and you didn't know how to talk to them, and you said, hey, I just went to Hold My Gun site. I downloaded the personal safety plan. I don't know if you have someone that you can call, but I'm giving you this plan, and I want you to know that you can count on me. What a beautiful way to present that in a non-threatening, non-stigmatizing way to say, I'm here for you,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
This is why we keep Matthew around and pay him the big bucks. By the way, folks, okay, so your link tree on Instagram has a ton of resources. So, folks, go follow Hold My Guns on Instagram. Hold My Guns, I think was the handle.
HoldMyGuns.org.
HoldMyGuns.org.
Yes.
And like I got right here your brochure. So I got you, fam. I go print some of these and go, talk to my peeps. I looked at the personal safety plan, looked really solid. And you have a girl on a gun version of a personal safety plan, which had a lot of really good info on it. It looked like, yeah. So there you go. Instagram, holdmyguns.org, and on Facebook, you're Hold My Guns. I'm gonna go find that right now.
Okay. Should be holdmyguns.org as well. And we're also on LinkedIn and on Telegram. So find us different socials.
Awesome. Well, I know that Genevieve's got something that she's got to run for, so we're kind of at that mark now. We got to wrap it up. Sarah and Genevieve, you both have been wonderful, and it's been fun to learn about a wonderful organization, an important organization, and everything you're doing. I'm all about finding resources within our community to help and serve the community without the legislative interference that we know everybody wants to shove down our throats. So this is a wonderful thing that you've got going, and I hope that we can be a part of it and support you in some way, and hope to continue to talk with you again in the future. Please do reach out and let us know if there's anything we can do to help here at the podcast or at concealedcarry.com. And we've already mentioned the website a few times and the socials. But ladies, last words or any kind of final goodbye stuff that you want to throw out there?
Genevieve?
Thank you guys so much for having us on here to talk about Hold My Guns. I love being a mental health advocate for the gun community, and I hope to see things like this inspire people to talk about their own personal struggles and be there for one another. Other than that, just talk to local gun shops about us. Donate if you want. All the information's in the link tree. You can even watch that documentary that Silencer Co. did on me. It's in the link tree as well. But thank you guys.
And I would say that for people out there listening, we genuinely care about our community, and I hope that that we've brought some hope today to people who are listening, and to know that help and resources are out there. And feel free to get in touch if you guys have any needs in that area. We're happy to connect you to our resources. We love liberty, we love firearms, and we enjoy helping our community to thrive.
Awesome. Thanks again so very much. Folks, we're going to have to wrap it up here. Thank you, Matthew, as well, for being here and being our pretty face to look at. And so until next time, folks, a reminder to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.